Bueno, muy buenas noches a todos los que se van conectando a esta sesión informativa o los que están reviviendo esta sesión días posteriores. Les damos la bienvenida a la sesión de Colfuturo, donde vamos a hablar sobre un convenio que tenemos, en este caso con Georgetown University, McDonough School of Business. En este caso es un convenio que aplica si ustedes desean hacer algún tipo de programa de posgrado con esta institución y les vamos a otorgar directamente el sistema de financiación de Colfuturo y podrán recibir el descuento, que en este caso es una beca de $25,000 americanos en el valor de la matrícula para un beneficiario de Colfuturo. Así que si alguno está interesado en acceder a este beneficio, puede postularse a nuestro sistema de financiación, el cual abre su convocatoria el próximo año, específicamente el 9 de enero, y cerrará el 29 de febrero del mismo año. Pueden postularse y en caso de ser seleccionados, ya como tal la universidad les va a otorgar este beneficio. Así que eso como tal es información para que ustedes la tengan en cuenta y para ya brindarnos información sobre la universidad, requisitos de admisión, oferta académica y demás, contamos con Marina Land, ella es la representante de esta universidad, quien nos va a brindar toda esa información de utilidad. Así que la invitación es que si tienen dudas, si tienen preguntas, aprovechen la cajita de Q&A, ya que al final vamos a responder cada una de ellas. So with no more introduction, thank you so much, Marina, for being here, and you can go ahead with your presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I'll just start with a short introduction. My name is Marina Lant. I'm an Associate Director of Graduate and Executive Degree Programs Admissions here at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. I'm so excited to be chatting with you all today. I'm going to talk briefly about sort of what Georgetown University has to offer, and then we'll talk a little bit about sort of postgraduate study, options that are available to you, more general advice, and then specific options that Georgetown has available to students. And we'll touch on some common pieces, application pieces, scholarships, funding, housing, all that good stuff. If you have any questions while we chat, feel free to type them in the Q&A box. The one the one caveat that I will add is, unfortunately, I am not fluent in Spanish, so I would ask that questions for me would be in English if you can, but I'll just get started. So I guess we'll start by talking a little bit about studying a graduate degree, and specifically studying a graduate degree abroad. I myself did my graduate degree abroad. I am American, born and raised, lived here my whole life, but I completed a master's degree at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland in the United Kingdom. So I am a big advocate for studying abroad for your graduate degree. I think there are tons of opportunities and sort of great skills that it can teach you to sort of put yourself in a totally different environment for that postgraduate study. When looking at studying a graduate degree, there are a couple of things that I encourage students to consider. A lot of this advice is going to be more specific to graduate business education, as that's what I'm the most familiar with, but certainly can be applicable to a lot of different types of study. One would be, what are your general goals for your postgraduate study? Is it to advance your knowledge in a certain area, to gain particular skills, to expand your network, to pivot to a different career? All of those are valid reasons for postgraduate study, but I encourage you to narrow down what reasons you want to pursue postgraduate study, because that will really help guide your search in terms of the types of programs and the types of institutions that make the most sense for you. Once you have a better idea of sort of why you're interested in postgraduate study, then I encourage you to start looking into specific programs guided by those reasons. For graduate business education, the classic graduate program is an MBA, but there are a number of other program options, specialized master's programs that can really align themselves with your goals, what you're looking for, and specific skills that you're looking to gain. I work most closely with the Master's in Management program that we have here at Georgetown McDonough. That program is an early career program designed for students with 0 to 3 years of full-time professional work experience. It's a full-time 10-month program. It's STEM designated. It's designed to help you sort of really kickstart and launch your career at the beginning of your career. There are also tons of other I would say, more specialized master's programs: Master of Science in Global Real Assets, Master of Arts in International Business and Policy. We have a Master of Science in Business Analytics, a Master of Science in Environmental and Sustainability Management. So really, whatever your interest might be, there's likely a degree program that's going to align with that interest and what your goals are. Apologize, I'm just looking at my notes briefly. In terms of specific sort of pieces of an application, every institution is going to have a slight twist to their application. So you'll have to look at a specific institution's website to get more information on what they want for their application. But generally speaking, you're going to be looking to submit a resume or CV. You're going to want to submit your transcripts. You're likely going to have some type of essay, written essay, that the institution is looking for, and letters of recommendation. So for all of those pieces, generally speaking, the specific program you're applying to is going to provide more specific guidance. And I always encourage applicants to reach out to admissions offices. We are here to help. We want to answer your questions. So truly don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or you're looking for more clarity on a component of an application or of a program even. Generally, what I encourage applicants to think about when sort of compiling an application is, how is your application being read as a single document? There are multiple components to an application, and I think it's easy to sort of focus in on a specific component and look at it sort of in a vacuum. What I really encourage you to think about is every component of your application will come together in one document that the admissions committee will read. So as you're thinking about compiling your application, think about all of the pieces of yourself: your academic background, your strengths, what you're looking to gain from a program, the unique perspective you bring to a classroom, all of these different pieces of yourself that you want an admissions committee to know about you. And where does that best fit in an application component? We're talking about your sort of work history. Well, likely that's going to fit best in your resume or CV. Your academic background, they'll likely understand a lot of that from your transcripts. But where else can you add some information about yourself in the different components of an application? I'm happy to talk about specific advice for specific components, but the biggest piece of advice that I can give students is really look at that individual institution's website for more specific information, and follow that information. Two would be, please proofread all of your written documents before you submit them. Most admissions committees are going to be evaluating all of your written materials for your written communication skills in addition to the content. So definitely show them to other people, have them reviewed by other people. There are many institutions where your career services office or there's a writing center will review that with you for just grammar, fluency, not necessarily content. I encourage you to take advantage of those services if you have them available to you. And then the other piece is always reach out. If it's not obvious on a website, reach out to an admissions office and ask them what the financing process looks like. Is there a separate application for scholarships? Are there specific scholarships that have an additional application? Do you have to apply by a certain time in the year to be considered for scholarship? Is it all need-based, all merit-based, a combination of both of those? Lots of buzzwords that I'm talking about. Happy to add more context to any of those questions as well, but reach out and the admissions office will be able to give you more information. Just make sure you have the information that you need to make an informed decision about how to apply for all of the funding options that might be available to you. Wonderful. So I'm going to move sort of from my more general advice, let's say, to talking a little bit more specifically about Georgetown, McDonough, our offerings and sort of specific advice and things that we offer here at Georgetown. So as I mentioned, we have a huge variety of graduate business degrees here at Georgetown McDonough. So really pretty much anything you might be interested in, we probably have a degree that's going to align with that interest. A lot of our degrees, we recommend them to specific groups of students based on your years of full-time work experience. So that will generally mean full-time professional experience after graduating from your undergraduate degree. We always want to know about work experience you have during your undergraduate degree, but we're generally not going to count that towards a recommended minimum of years of experience for a program. There are a huge variety of specialized masters. What I will say is another thing that we offer here at Georgetown, we have a number of master's programs that are going to be fully in person, a number that are hybrid, a number that are offered only online. Make sure that you know what modality you're interested in, or multiple types of modalities you might be interested in as you're exploring programs. As I mentioned, I work most closely with our master's in management program. That's a fully in-person program. Generally speaking, one of the pros of a fully in-person program is most of the time those programs are able to sponsor students on student visas to come to the program. Sometimes hybrid programs or online programs are not able to sponsor students on student visas. So if that's something you anticipate needing to study in the US, that's definitely something you'll want to ask the admissions office. I'm happy to answer questions for specific programs at Georgetown. So our master's in management program does sponsor visas and is a STEM designated program. If you don't know about STEM designated programs, if you complete a STEM designated graduate degree in the US, you can be eligible for up to 3 years of work authorization after graduation, which is great if you want to get some work experience in the US, or if you're sort of permanently relocating to the US, or that's a goal that you have. That's a great option. As opposed to a non-STEM designated master's degree, you'll generally only be eligible for about 12 months of work authorization, so about 1 year versus 3 years. So that's a really great thing to look out for as you're looking into graduate programs as well. In terms of specific admissions processes, they vary a little bit by program, but generally speaking, at Georgetown, we have multiple deadlines for all of our programs. Generally speaking, once you submit a completed application for one of our programs, the admissions committee will begin reviewing your application. For almost all of our programs, it's not all of them, but almost all of our programs, there is an interview component to the admissions process. Generally speaking, those interviews are by invitation only, and you'll interview with either a member of the admissions team or an alum of the program, generally speaking. For those admissions interviews, there's really nothing you need to prepare for them. It's really about you, your background and experiences, and why you're interested in Georgetown and the particular program that you've applied to. Not all students who apply to these programs will be invited to interview. Not all students who completed an admissions interview will be admitted to the program, but if there is an admissions interview component, generally speaking, all admitted students will have completed an admissions interview as part of that admissions process. Timelines for that process really can vary by program and the specific deadline that you apply to. I'll use our master's in management or our MIM program as an example. Our first application deadline is in 8 days, actually on October 20th. That's our early rolling deadline. If you apply between now and October 20th, we would expect for you to have a decision in 4 to 6 weeks, give or take, from when you submit your application. Our first formal application deadline round, I should say, is November 15th. If you were to apply between October 21st and November 15th, you would receive your decision on December 15th. Generally speaking, all of our application deadlines have specific decision notification dates, at which time you'll receive your decision, or they have a general time frame you can expect to receive a decision after submitting an application. So it can vary by program and by specific round. The other piece that I'll add to that is, again, if you're anticipating needing a student visa to study in the US at Georgetown, there are certain recommended deadlines just based on visa processing timelines. We have a lot of experience helping students through the visa process, and so we want to give you the most time possible to prepare for that process. So generally speaking, the earlier in the year you apply, the better you're going to set yourself up for that visa process if you are admitted and decide to come to Georgetown. In terms of sort of financing and all of those fun pieces, there are a number of ways that you can finance your graduate degree. Generally speaking, our students finance their graduate degrees through a combination of multiple funding sources: personal funding, savings, family support, any scholarships that they are awarded, and loans. Obviously, Colfuturo offers a number of funding opportunities for students, and we partner with them for our Master's in Management program. So I would definitely encourage you to look more into that partnership and all of the resources that they offer in terms of funding. For our Master's in Management program, we also offer scholarships. They're all merit-based. They tend to be modest. To apply for scholarship, you don't need to do anything special. You just need to apply to the program. All applicants are automatically considered for scholarship. And if you apply to the program and you meet the criteria for our Colfuturo partnership, you would automatically be considered for that award as well. Which is really wonderful. No extra steps you need to take on your end for us to sort of begin that consideration process. In terms of loans, there are a number of options. We have a couple of recommended loan providers specifically for international students looking to study in the US. They tend to not need sort of like, I don't want to call it collateral, but they tend to have sort of more lenient requirements in terms of minimum requirements to get loans. They tend to work really well with the office at Georgetown that processes those loans. So I can talk a little bit more about specific providers that we recommend to students. Prodigy Finance and Empower are the two that we generally recommend students look into if you're looking to take out loans as well. And then we also offer a number of external funding resources. So there are some scholarships, as I mentioned earlier, that are administered directly by the admissions committee. You apply for those by applying to the program. But Georgetown University also offers a number of scholarships that you may be eligible for that are not administered by our admissions committee, but are administered by different committees within the university. And then there are a number of external organizations that offer scholarships for graduate study at Georgetown or graduate business school. So we provide applicants or interested students with more information about all of those resources. I encourage all students, take some time, 30 minutes, an hour, block off some time and look at the databases of sort of scholarships available to students and different scholarships available at Georgetown to see if you might qualify for any of those scholarships. A lot of time, those scholarships are going to be based on a couple of characteristics: country of citizenship, what you studied as your undergraduate degree, your career goals after your graduate program, different personal characteristics. So all of those things could be a basis for qualification for any of those scholarships. So I encourage you to take some time and look to see if you would qualify for any of those components. And I'm sure we'll have some questions about funding options. So I'm happy to discuss that more in our Q&A section as well. And then I also wanted to touch a little bit on sort of the housing front of things. I think this is a huge question that we often get for students who are international students coming to study in the US. What does housing look like? I can't speak to other institutions, so I'll speak only to Georgetown. Georgetown does offer one building of graduate student housing. The thing that I caution students is that it's not located on our main campus, which is what you'll see in my Zoom background behind me. This is our main campus in Washington, D.C. Georgetown is lovingly nicknamed the Hilltop, as it does sit on top of a hill. So walking into campus always is a little strenuous. It is on top of a hill. We also have a more downtown campus and more downtown DC, where our law center is located and our School of Continuing Studies is located down there. That's where our graduate student housing is located. It's about a 30 to 45-minute shuttle ride from that location to main campus where you would take classes as a graduate business student. Georgetown offers dedicated shuttles that run that route. You can actually see a shuttle in my background as well, this white bus here. They're only for Georgetown students, staff, and faculty. They're generally very timely, so it definitely is a good option. That being said, graduate student housing can be more expensive than private housing. It can also be less expensive than private housing. It really depends on what you're looking for in the housing market. At Georgetown, we offer a number of resources to assist students with the housing search. Every year, we survey our current students to hear about where they're living, if they like it, how much they're paying, what neighborhood they're living in, the building, all that good information. and we compile it into a guide that we share with our admitted students to learn a little bit more about what housing options look like in Washington, D.C. We offer one-on-one meetings with our admitted students to talk through housing options, and then we really try to connect you with resources on campus as well, including the Office of Neighborhood Life here at Georgetown, which serves all Georgetown students who live off campus, undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate, all those students. So they're a really great resource in terms of reviewing lease agreements, helping you with documents, especially if you are someone who doesn't have a credit score necessarily, or is coming to the US for the first time and are looking for some guidance on a lease application process. They're a really wonderful resource in terms of sort of the more legal side of things, and also just advice on how to go about the housing search. So a number of resources that you can take advantage of there. The other piece that I would note is that generally speaking at Georgetown, tuition does not include housing, so accommodation while you're in DC for the program. So that's something you want to factor into your budget as well when you're looking at financing. Wonderful. I think those were the big things that I wanted to touch on. Hopefully that information was helpful to you all. I'm happy to discuss in more detail any of the programs that we offer here at Georgetown if we have folks on the call today who are more interested. I see that we have a couple of questions in the chat. So Manuel is asking about English level required to apply. That's a great question. So for our master's in management program, and I believe this is also true for our MBA program, but I would have to double check that information. We offer a waiver for our English language requirement if you are a native English speaker or your undergraduate degree was taught in English. If neither of those things are true for you, then you would need to submit proof of English language proficiency. We accept the TOEFL and the IELTS, and I can never remember which grading scale corresponds to which test, but the two required levels, scores I should say, is a 100 and a 7.5. So you'll have to pair that with the appropriate grading scale with the appropriate test, but that's the requirements that we have for that question. And then there's also a question about the tuition for our MBA program. I am just confirming that number. I'll have to confirm that number for you. But the other thing to note for the MBA program is, generally speaking, tuition is going to be billed in credit hours, and there's a certain number of credit hours that you have to take for the program. Some of our other programs are billed for the entire program. So for instance, our master's in management program is the tuition for our fall 2023 intake was $56,840. Typically, we expect to see an increase in tuition between cohorts. They typically tend to be small. While I'm looking for that tuition number for our MBA program, are there any other questions? Feel free to type them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them. Okay, here we go. I found it. So tuition for our MBA program for the fall 2023 intake was $68,063, keeping in mind that it is a 2-year program.
Good. So I do have a question, and it's from social media, and they're asking about the GMAT. So it's a requirement for you?
A hot topic. So it varies slightly by our different programs here at Georgetown. Again, I know most specifically the Master's in Management program, so I'll speak to that program. We do require a GMAT or a GRE test score for our Master's in Management program. However, we offer a waiver option to students who have a 3.2 or higher cumulative GPA on the US 4.0 scale. If you do not have a GPA on the 4.0 scale, never fear. You may still qualify for that waiver option. What you'll want to do is send us an email, and we'll let you know the specific documents we need to see if you qualify for that waiver option. I can share our email. I think I can share our email in the chat. I will do my best. It's pretty easy to remember. It's mimprogram@georgetown.edu. And this year, we also have a new option in terms of test scores for our Master's in Management program, and that is the GMAC Business Fundamentals Statistics module. They offer 3 modules in their Business Fundamentals series. We're just looking for the statistics module, excuse me. It's an online course. I encourage students to think of it like a Coursera or a data camp course. It's self-paced. I would expect like 5 to 10 hours to complete the course. Once you complete the course, you'll have learned something, hopefully, and you'll have sort of a completion information that you can then attach to your application. You can submit proof of that course completion in lieu of or in addition to a GMAT or a GRE test score. Again, I can't speak to other programs or other schools in too much detail, but what I can say for the Master's in Management program here at Georgetown is that generally speaking, when we're thinking about a test score as part of your application, I encourage students to think about the quantitative context they have to their application. Our MIM program is STEM designated. It is a quantitatively intense program. And so the admissions committee is going to look in detail to see what quantitative experience you have. That could be from your academic courses that you've taken, from internships or work experience that you have, from projects you've completed. All of those are ways that you can demonstrate that quantitative aptitude. If you don't have quantitative experience in any of those areas, that's when I would really encourage you to consider submitting a test score or that GMAC Business Fundamentals module to really add some quantitative context to your application. That is something that the admissions committee is looking at in detail when evaluating your application. So hopefully that was helpful information. As I mentioned, other programs at Georgetown have different requirements. We have a number of programs that are fully test optional. You do not have to submit a test score. Our MBA program does have 1 or 2 options to waive their test score requirement. But again, that's going to be more specific to the specific sort of version of our MBA program you're applying to and your specific background if you would qualify for that waiver option.
Good, thank you. Then the second question that I have, it's about the work experience, and they want to know if you have maybe a requirements of how many years they need to have.
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, that's going to vary slightly by program. So our Master's in Management program is designed for students with 0 to 3 years of full-time professional work experience. If you have more than 3 years of full-time professional work experience, that's when an MBA might better fit sort of your skills that you already have, the skills you're looking to gain, and the career outcomes you might be looking for. We have other programs, our Master of Arts in International Business and Policy. We recommend a minimum of 3 years of experience. Our average years of experience tends to be like 7 to 10, I believe, in that program. Excuse me. Our MBA program, we recommend a minimum of 2 years of experience. Our average tends to hover around 7 years of experience for that program. And then we have other programs that have no requirement or recommendation for years of work experience coming into the program. So an example of that would be our Master of Science in Global Real Assets program. That's open to students from directly after their undergraduate degree to 15, 20 years of work experience. So there's really a variety depending on what you're looking for and how much experience you do have.
Good. Next question is about like how easy or how difficult is to get a job once they finish the master in management.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Master's in Management degree is an up and coming degree here in the US. It was pioneered in Europe. It's becoming a lot more popular here in the US. Historically, at Georgetown, we've seen really strong career outcomes for our students graduating from our MIM program. I would direct you for more specific numbers to our careers report, which you can find on our website. But for our class of 2022 that graduated in May 2022, 93% of our students received a job offer within 6 months of graduation. 91% of them had accepted that offer. For international students, that number was 100% for receiving an offer and accepting an offer. We have students in a huge variety of industries. I would say the most popular for our MIM graduates are consulting and financial services. Excuse me, just getting over a cold. but we have students really in a huge variety of industries. The MIM degree is really designed to be versatile. So if you have a particular interest, we probably have a student who's entered that field after the MIM program. For international students specifically in the MIM program, many of them are interested in working in the US, at least in the short term after graduating from the program. Generally speaking, we've found a lot of success with students sort of meeting that goal. Every year, we have students who are interested in working outside of the US after the program. And generally speaking, students do reach that goal as well. But for staying within the US and working in the US, that STEM designation really helps for those 3 years of work authorization. And then we have really dedicated, robust career services to help you sort of get those outcomes that I just talked about. So as a MIM student at Georgetown, you have access to 3 different sets of career services. The Colley Career Center, which serves all Georgetown students, the Graduate Career Center, which serves graduate students, and our dedicated director of MIM Career Services, her name is Karen Kwagu. She's truly wonderful. She is dedicated to just our MIM students, and she's got a whole careers team behind her as well. You'll have lots of opportunities to connect with Karen one-on-one. She helps hosts workshops, coordinates career fairs throughout the year where employers come to campus. You have the option to connect with peer mentors who are typically MBA students who either have worked in the industry you're interested in or have recently completed a recruiting process in the industry you're interested in. So they're a really great resource as well. And then, of course, the alumni network. There are Hoyas truly around the world, everywhere you can imagine, and in every industry you can imagine. So they're a great resource as well. In terms of specific resources for international students, we have pretty good information in terms of what specific organizations are open to hiring students who are on an OPT or work authorization after a graduate degree. And a couple of times a year, I should say 2 to 3 times a year, our careers team brings in an immigration lawyer for a session with our students where you can sort of ask them questions to make sure that you have a really solid understanding of what your legal requirements are to stay in the US and work, what an employer needs to do for you, what you can do for an employer, and how to communicate that to a potential employer. Because half the battle, honestly, is clearly communicating what you are eligible for and what you are not eligible for to an employer who may not have as much experience hiring students on a post-degree work authorization like OPT in the US. So I know that was a very long-winded answer, but the short version of that answer is we see strong career outcomes for students after our program, and we have really robust services to sort of help you get to those outcomes, depending on what your specific goals are. Of course, those sort of support services might look a little different.
Good. So those are the questions that I have from social media. Thank you so much, Marina, for being here and for giving us all this useful information. I don't know if before finishing the session, do you want to share like some tips, like kind of piece of advice for these students that want to start the admission process?
Yes, I definitely do. So a couple of pieces of advice. I know I mentioned this earlier, but don't hesitate to reach out. I can speak to Georgetown specifically. Every single person who works on my team is here to help you through this process. We want to answer your questions. We want to meet with you. We want to hear about your story. So truly don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always happy to email back and forth, try and set up a meeting if we can. I think we're really here to help you. The other piece of advice that I would have is specifically for Georgetown and our MIM program, we have virtual events all the time. We actually have one next week. It's a virtual sample class where you'll get to sort of experience a MIM class for yourself. And attending one of those events is a great way to learn more about the program, connect with faculty or alumni of the program. But also, if you attend one of those events, we offer an application fee waiver. So you can waive our $175 application fee. So save yourself the money, attend an event, get that application fee waiver. And then the last thing that I would say is, like I said, we offer a number of events. One of those is an application tips workshop. So we go through every component of our application in significant detail and give you specific tips and tricks on how to sort of craft your application. I covered some of that in our conversation today, but there was certainly more than we could cover in just the short time we have together today. So if you're interested in submitting an application, I encourage you to look into one of those workshops. And I think the last thing that I will plug is I'm so excited that I got to meet you all virtually today, but I'll actually be in person in Bogota next week on October 19th. And Culture will be there as well. Access Masters Fair. So some of you are planning to attend or you haven't heard of it, definitely register. And I hope to see some of you in person in just a couple of days now in Bogota.
Good. So thanks again, Marina. Thanks everyone for being here. And I don't know if you can share with us your email or a contact email in case you have more questions.
Yes, I put our general email, that mimprogram@georgetown.edu, in the chat. My personal email is a little bit harder to remember. It is ml2006@georgetown.edu. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I am here to answer questions, and always happy to find time to meet and discuss your interest in our programs in more detail.
Good. Thank you. So thanks for everything, and I hope to see you here in Bogota.
Yes, thank you all so much. It was so nice to see all of you, and hopefully I'll see lots of you next week.
Yeah, yeah, we expect that. So thank you so much, and good night. Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Good night.